Sarah stood at the edge of the small town, her suitcase in hand, taking in the sight of the sleepy, secluded place that was to be her new home. A gentle breeze rustled the trees, and the distant hum of nature seemed to welcome her. She had never been one for large cities or noisy neighborhoods, so the idea of a peaceful, quiet town suited her just fine. Yet, there was something about the air here that felt different, charged, as if the very soil beneath her feet held secrets she was yet to uncover. As she walked down the cobbled street, Sarah couldn't help but notice how the town seemed to be trapped in time, with its old, weathered buildings and narrow lanes that twisted in strange directions. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other, where the silence at night was heavy, and the moon seemed to linger a little longer than it should. She reached the house that had been rented to her, an old Victorian-style home with ivy creeping up its stone walls. The door creaked open as she pushed it, the hinges protesting against years of disuse. It wasn't much, but Sarah was used to living simply. The wood floors were polished to a soft glow, and the air inside smelled faintly of cedar and dust, untouched for years. She set her things down in the living room and took a deep breath. This was her fresh start, a place where she could put the pieces of her broken life back together. After a year of loss, heartbreak, and upheaval, Sarah was ready for peace. That night, as Sarah explored the quiet town, she wandered through the small park by the edge of the woods. The moon hung low, casting long shadows over the path. The silence felt oppressive, yet oddly soothing. The only sound was the soft rustle of leaves as the wind swept through the trees. That's when she saw him. A figure stood at the far end of the park, partially hidden by the thick trunks of the oak trees. He was tall, his broad shoulders and dark clothing blending with the night, but there was something about him that seemed out of place. His pale skin almost shimmered under the moonlight, and his raven-black hair framed his sharp features. His eyes, those eyes were what unsettled her the most. They gleamed with an unnatural intensity, like a predator watching its prey. Sarah froze, her heart skipping a beat. She felt an inexplicable pull toward him, as if an invisible string tied her to him. Against her better judgment, she stepped forward, her footsteps soft on the earth. The man didn't move, but she could feel his gaze following her, like a heat wave on her skin. As she approached, the man finally spoke, his voice deep, smooth, and almost too perfect. "You're new here," he said, his words like a melody in the stillness of the night. Sarah hesitated for a moment before answering. "Yes. I just moved in today." The man stepped forward slightly, his movements graceful and deliberate, like a shadow crossing the moonlight. "I'm Victor," he introduced himself, his gaze never leaving her. "It's rare for strangers to come to this town. Very few people come here by choice." "I guess I'm one of the few," Sarah replied, her voice shaky, but she couldn't explain why. There was something magnetic about Victor, something that made her want to stay and speak with him, despite the growing unease in the pit of her stomach. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Sarah could feel the tension in the air, thick and heavy, and yet there was something strangely comforting about his presence. He wasn't like the men she'd known before, this was different, almost otherworldly. His gaze seemed to penetrate her soul, reading her thoughts before she even had the chance to think them. "What's it like?" she asked, her curiosity getting the better of her. "What's what like?" Victor's lips curled into a faint, almost imperceptible smile, as if he were privy to some joke only he understood. "Living here. In this town," Sarah clarified, her voice faltering. Victor's smile faded, and for a moment, the world seemed to grow darker around them. The shadows of the trees stretched toward them, as if they were reaching for something they could never have. His eyes glittered in the moonlight. "It's a place of secrets," he said, his voice lowering. "This town has a way of keeping things hidden. People who come here never leave the same." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She wanted to ask more, but something in Victor's tone stopped her. There was a danger in his words, a promise of something she couldn't quite understand. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Victor's smile returned, but it was colder this time. "You'll find out soon enough." Before Sarah could respond, he turned and began to walk away, his movements fluid and swift, like a phantom fading into the night. She stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty space where he had been, her heart racing. What had just happened? Who was he really? As the night grew colder, Sarah reluctantly turned to head back to her new home. The air felt thicker now, suffocating in a way she hadn't noticed before. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, that something unseen was following her every step. It wasn't just her imagination, there was something sinister lurking in the town, something she wasn't ready to face. The next morning, Sarah awoke with a sense of unease lingering in the pit of her stomach. She hadn't slept well, her dreams had been filled with shadowy figures and strange whispers, but one thing stood out in her memory: Victor. His piercing gaze, his cryptic words. Everything about him had felt wrong, and yet, she couldn't deny the attraction she felt toward him. As she went to the bathroom to splash some cold water on her face, she caught sight of herself in the mirror. Her reflection seemed off. She leaned closer, her brow furrowing in confusion. There, on the side of her neck, were 2 red marks, deep and distinct. Bite marks. Her breath caught in her throat. She didn't remember anything from the night before, nothing that could explain how those marks had appeared. She hadn't been bitten by an insect or scratched by anything. And yet, here they were, undeniable and fresh. Her heart began to race as panic set in. What happened to her last night? Was it a dream? Or had she really encountered Victor in some way she couldn't explain? Suddenly, the air in the room felt colder, and she heard a faint voice, almost a whisper, soft and familiar, but entirely foreign. "You are mine now." The words echoed in her mind, sending a shiver down her spine. Sarah spun around, but no one was there. Her pulse hammered in her ears, and her breath came in shallow gasps. The screen fades to black. To be continued. Subscribe for the next episode to uncover the truth behind Sarah's strange encounter.